So welcome to our virtual Wayland Library event. Tonight we're excited to have Eric Migdal with us here from It's All Relative Genealogy. He's going to talk to us about using DNA in your genealogical research. I have a couple of Zoom housekeeping notes before I hand it over. First is that we're recording this session and we'll put it on our local cable access station, Waycam, as well as YouTube, which will be linked from the library's website. So unless you turn off your video, you may see a tiny little thumbnail. When Eric is talking, I'm just going to record his face, so don't worry about that. When Eric is talking, he'll be sharing some slides, and then he'll open the room for question. And I recommend that you switch to speaker view, so you see Eric next to his slides. You can also select view side by side. I'll put this in the chat. And feel free to add your questions to the Zoom chat at any time, and I'll be sure that we get to them during the Q&A, or if you're comfortable, you're welcome to speak out loud at that point. So the last thing is message me. I'm Courtney from the library if you have any technical troubles. And now I will hand it over to Eric.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me at the Wayland Library. I want to thank Courtney for setting everything up for us and making everything possible for this event. I've been doing genealogy for about 25 years. I'm an 8-year resident of Pompton Lakes, New Jersey. I'm married. I have a wonderful wife. I have a daughter, a son, a bonus son, and a brand new Yorkie puppy who I just showed Courtney. He's adorable and at 15 weeks pretty well trained already, so I'm happy about that. I'm a member of the National Genealogical Society, and I did a lot of lessoning and tutoring from them and learning from a lot of things that they had. And I've been doing family research and genealogy for about 25 years. I got interested in the study of family history about 25 years ago. Like I said, my starting goal was to learn about my biological family because I was told about at age 7 that I was adopted. And that at that time, I had no idea what it actually meant, except that I was told that I was loved twice. After my daughter was born in '97, I decided it was time to find about the truth about my biological family and who they were. Unfortunately, I had very little to go on. I received from my mother a hospital record from my birth and a page of my adoption decree. Just one page, it's all she had. They showed the name of my natural mother as Rose Becker, the name of a hotel in Miami, Florida. I researched for 20 years on the assumption that Rose was young and possibly Orthodox Jew from Queens or Brooklyn. And I was shocked after I contacted somebody from the Florida Adoption Reunion Registry, since I was born in Miami, that they were only able to tell me that my mom was indeed age 38 and from a Midwestern state named with the letter I. So I started doing some research. I began looking for a Rose Becker born approximately 1927 in Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, and Idaho. I made a lot of inquiries and phone calls. All to my disappointment, I then did an AncestryDNA test and a 23andMe test to make sure I had more matches. When I received the results showing no Beckers anywhere, I knew something wasn't quite right. I was a DNA match with a cousin named Norman Fuhrer, and I got in touch with his wife, who was the family genealogist. Over the next year, I built a family tree, placing as many DNA matches as possible into it. I received guidance and help from a few wonderful people to help nail down that I was indeed a child from this family. The family were all from Chicago, Illinois. There's the letter I. And I was told to reach out to a woman named Judy in Miami. 3 days later, I got a letter back from a woman named Susan. I got a call from a woman named Susan, who said that Judy is her maternal half-sister, so they share a mother. And I said, well, would you be able to do a DNA test for me? And she agreed. She did an ancestry test, and then 6 weeks later, I had not only Susan as a half-sister, but also Judy. And I did find that I was the true son of a woman named Bella Fura. So Rose Becker was nowhere in the picture. She used an alias so that she wouldn't be tracked down the road. And it doesn't happen as much like that anymore. Now adoptions are quite open. And most of the time, the biological parents know who the adoptive parents, and they keep in touch with everything. I found that she had passed, unfortunately, in 2003, so I didn't get to meet her, but I'm learning more about her every day from my sisters. I started a great relationship with Susan, and I found and met a half-sister on my dad's side, and we have a wonderful, loving relationship. I'm closer with her than any of the others I've met so far. But I have found 7 half-siblings, 14 nieces and nephews, and dozens of cousins. I can't keep in touch with all of them. There are just too many, but I do try to say hello once in a while on Facebook or on email. I hope everyone will walk away with a little understanding of DNA and the different uses of it and the different companies that supply DNA testing. So sit back, relax, and I'll start up my slide presentation. We'll do a little quick question and answer afterwards. So save your questions, jot them down in the chat if you'd like, or we'll verbalize them at the end, okay? Everybody sit back. I see Robert enjoying his glass of wine. I'm ready to join you, Robert. All right. Let me move this out of my way. Okay. Okay, so this is, hope everybody can see. Courtney, let me know you can hear and see the window. No, no, probably not, because I didn't.
All set. We can see everything.
Okay, awesome. I am in. Okay, good. Let me just get rid of this again. It's out of my way. All right, DNA and its use in genealogical research, understanding DNA and how it could be used in your family history research. Okay, so what is DNA? DNA, or deoxyribonucleic acid, which is always hard to say, is a long molecule that contains our unique genetic code. Like a recipe book, it holds the instructions for making all the proteins in our bodies. Your genome is made of a chemical called deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA for short. The complete set of DNA makes up your genome. You're a complete encyclopedia of life. It makes your eyes blue or brown and your body tall or short. In today's modern world, through scientific breakthroughs, there are several companies that offer DNA testing. These tests usually done by submitting a sample of your saliva, which contains your DNA, or a mouth swab that collects DNA material from inside your cheek. The most popular DNA testing companies are AncestryDNA, 23andMe, MyHeritage, Living DNA, and Family Tree DNA, also known as ftDNA. These companies provide autosomal DNA tests. Not all provide testing for Y-DNA, which is for the male line, or mitochondrial DNA testing for the women's line. What is genetic genealogy? Genealogy is simply the study of one's family tree or ancestry. Genetic genealogy uses DNA testing to determine the genetic relationship between individuals. I regularly use different DNA tests for my clients to assist in building correct family trees. I use centimorgans, the combined segments of DNA shared between two persons, to determine a possible family relationship. Autosomal DNA tests. Autosomal DNA tests trace a person's autosomal chromosomes, which contains the segments of DNA the person shares with everyone to whom they're related, maternally and paternally, both directly and indirectly. Y chromosome testing uncovers a male's Y chromosome haplogroup. the ancient group of people from whom one's father's line descends. Because only one's male line direct ancestors are traced by Y-DNA testing, no females nor their male ancestors from whom a male descends are found in the results. Because everyone has autosomal chromosomes, both males and females can take autosomal DNA tests. And the test is equally effective for people of either gender. With an autosomal test, your results won't include information about haplogroups. DNA autosomal testing. Ancestry.com has been around for quite a while. They are the biggest, and they do have the most tests people have tested from. They were founded in 1983. 10 million DNA were tested, and 100 million trees are built there, and they have 20 billion records. They do provide ethnicity results, which show you where your family came from over the years, and you have the ability to create your own family tree on Ancestry. You have the ability to search records, to look for information about your family. You have the ability to contact DNA matches through a messaging system that they have. Their DNA test costs $99.99 plus shipping. They do have sales regularly. They actually have one right now. It's half off, so it might be good for anybody who's looking to do a test to pick up one now. And you do need they do have a subscription of $24.99 a month for the US edition and $37.99 a month for the World edition. You do not need a subscription though. If you do,
yeah. I just want to interrupt you. The library has a free subscription to Ancestry that anyone can use.
Yeah, I was going to get to that because okay. I don't know. It's okay. I don't know what every library has, but I generally do find out and let people know that Ancestry is available at the Wayland, Massachusetts library for free. And are they able to get it online at home now that you guys are closed? Or you do have to only at the library?
They can get it online with their library card if they are a Wayland resident.
There you go. Awesome. 23andMe was founded in 2006. As you can see, it's a lot newer than Ancestry. They only have about 5 million users. They do provide ethnicity results, and I did find that the two companies do share very close ethnicity results to each other. They're not that far off. They now have the ability to create trees, and on 23andMe is great because they actually use your DNA matches and they try to find a home for them within the tree without you having to put them in. So, I mean, they're not always correct, but they do a pretty good job at creating a tree based on your DNA matches at 23andMe. They have health information available. It's minor, and I wouldn't run to your doctor and say, oh, by the way, 23andMe says I have this or that. There are other sites that are better to find out anything about that. Plus, your doctor would probably know more anyway. Ability to participate in health research. What they do is they ask you a series of questions. Are you blue-eyed? Are you tall? Are you short? Are you a smoker? Do you like sweets? Do you like salty things? And they just add that to the database to understand everybody's different genes and how they different things come out about how you react based on your genes. You also have the ability to contact DNA matches, similar to Ancestry, but a little harder to use. DNA tests at Ancestry at 23andMe are $99 plus shipping. They might probably have gone up a little bit, but from last I've known, they're $99. The great thing about it is you don't need a subscription in order to use their tools. You can't do any searching on 23andMe, but they do have tools you can use to help you in your family research after you do the DNA test without a subscription. Chromosomes. Chromosomes, the usual number of chromosomes inside every cell of your body is 46 total, or 23 pairs. You inherit half of your chromosomes from your biological mother and the other half from your biological father. Scientists have numbered the chromosome pairs from 1 to 22, with the 23rd pair labeled as X or Y, depending on the structure. The first 22 pairs of chromosomes are called autosomes. That's where we get the autosomal testing from. The 23rd pair of chromosomes are known as the sex chromosomes because they decide if you will be born male or female. Females have 2 X chromosomes while males have 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. This is called a chromosome browser, and this is from 23andMe. And this shows the 23 chromosomes that I share and the sections I share with my half-sister. They do show it as a percentage of 26.2% sharing, or 1,952 centimorgans, which I'll go over a little more about what they are in a few. But as you can see, this is my paternal half-sister, and it shows no match on the X or the sex chromosome because of being a paternal side. Since we're not maternally related and only paternally related, there is no X match. And shows that we do share quite a bit of DNA. This is one of my cousins. She's my first cousin once removed, which only means that we share grandparents in common. Her grandparent is, her great-grandmother is my grandmother. So we all are off by 1 generation, hence the once removed. And that's all the once removed means, is that we're off by 1 generation. If you're off by 2 generations, you would be twice removed. 23andMe chromosome browser showing segments on chromosomes shared with my first cousin once removed. Now you can see the DNA match is a lot lower. You can see there's a lot less matching on these chromosomes at 546 centimorgans. But as you can see on the right-hand side, she is my maternal cousin. We share a maternal line. That's why she is showing some of the X chromosome that we share on the X chromosome as well. Now, earlier I said that they don't go over 23andMe and Ancestry do not use the X and the Y, but they do use a little bit of it. But they just don't give you as much as you would if you did a mitochondrial DNA test or a male Y DNA test. What is a segment? A segment is a block, a chunk, a piece, or a string of DNA on a chromosome. It is typically determined by a start location and an end location on a chromosome. A segment refers to all the DNA in between and including the start and end locations. I use segments to determine if DNA matches are linked together by segments of DNA they share. For instance, if I wanted to look at a chromosome browser sharing my sister, myself, and someone else, I could see where we might share DNA based on where the shared segments are on each chromosome. Just want to remove this again, it keeps popping up. Okay. This is a screen from GEDmatch, and I'll go over what GEDmatch is in a little while, but I wanted to show you what the segments actually are. This only shows 2 of the chromosomes that I share with my sister Linda. So it does show each tiny little line that you see on each of these 2 spots show where we share DNA. Now, the most significant parts are the ones going to be in blue, and they're highlighted with the yellow on top that we share a half match. The green lines show a full match. So you can see that there are a lot of tiny little lines on this chart, and those are the segments that we share. And each on GEDmatch, it actually shows the breakdown of which chromosome we share the DNA and the actual spot on the DNA strand, on the chromosome strand that we actually share. And it shows how much we share as well for each of the chromosomes. But I'm only showing you the 2 of them because it would take up another 4 pages. So what is a centimorgan anyway? A centimorgan is just a fancy word that geneticists use to describe the length of the DNA segment, specifically the difference between chromosome positions. We inherit DNA on each chromosome from each parent, and we will share segments of genetic material described as DNA segments of varying size with our relatives. The distance between the location on the chromosome where the shared DNA segment starts to the point where it ends is measured in centimorgans. So every one of those little lines on that screen before has a start and end point, and anything in between that shares DNA will come up as centimorgans. This chart shows the average, high, and low centimorgans you would share with a particular relative within your family. The closer you are related, as in being a parent or a child, you could see that the number is 3471 centimorgans is the average, with the highs and lows for each. As you can see, as you get further and further away, there are chances that you will share no DNA with that person. It's just the luck of the draw. Most of the time you will find little bits, but sometimes it will come up as zero, and you will believe that you do not share any DNA with this person, though there is a slight chance that you do have a small amount of DNA sharing with a person. But there's always a possibility that it could be zero. This chart is readily available online. You can see I got this from the Shared Centimorgan Project version 2.0. Blaine T. Bettinger is one of the people that I learned from. He also provides lots of different webcasts and podcasts on a site called AncestryDNA. You can find them online. They do charge for a membership for some of their events, but they also do have free events occasionally. These are some of my DNA matches, and this is from Ancestry. It shows my daughter. I scratched out living person's names just for privacy, but it shows on the chart the amount of DNA that my daughter and I share and across how many different segments. So each set of segments has a certain amount of centimorgans in it, and it totals 3,464, which is right in the range of the high and low on that other chart I showed you. Then I have a couple of more close family first cousin matches, and Ancestry will only show you exactly what they believe is the estimate of what you share with that person. It will not tell me that this person is my half-sister. And when I first started doing this, my sister Linda's husband contacted me and says, I believe through Ancestry that you and my wife are first cousins. So I started to do the research on how we share a grandparent. That would make her my first cousin, sharing a grandparent. But when I started doing more research and talking to more people who had a little more knowledge than I did at the time, they asked me, how many centimorgans do you share with Linda? And I go, 1,915 centimorgans. And they go, wait a minute, she's not your first cousin. She's most likely a half-sister. How old is she? I go, she's 11 years older. And they go, well, it's possible that she could be your aunt or your niece, which is possibilities at that number, but she's most likely your half-sibling. So once I told my sister that she's not my cousin, she was disappointed, but she was thrilled to find out she had a baby brother. The next one is also a half-sister. This is on my mother's side, and it shows that we are sharing 1,748 centimorgans across 49 segments, and it shows that that we are close family first cousins as well. But I learned through DNA and learning how to do this that she is actually my half-sister. The last one is a maternal first cousin once removed that I showed in the other slide. And as you can see, once you get further and further away, the centimorgan numbers do drop quite a bit. So this is the top one is my first cousin once removed that I just mentioned. And the way I show people how one time removed is that her great-grandparents are my grandparents. For every one cousin, first cousin, you're going to share a grandparent. Second cousins, you're going to share great-grandparents. For every G, there's one. So grandparents, 1G, first cousin. Great-grandparents, 2 Gs, second cousin. The second one down is a second cousin, one time removed, meaning they're off one generation. Her great-grandparents are my great-great-grandparents, or 2 times great-grandparents. The third one down is a half first cousin, one time removed. If I'm going too fast, you can always ask me in chat questions later about this. I always get them. His grandfather is my great-grandfather, hence the once removed. We're off one generation. But his grandmother is not related to me. So there is no connection on one side of the family, causing him to be a half first cousin. And as you can see, the closeness in the range of the centimorgans between a second cousin once removed and a half first cousin once removed are pretty close, only about 22 off from each other. So they're always estimates until you build them in a family tree, and then you find out the true nature of the relationship. This is a 23andMe chart, and it shows usage of, instead of centimorgans, they do show it as a percentage. As my half-sister is 26.24, my first cousin once removed is 8.02. There are spots and there are tools that can show you the difference between the similarity between the percentage and what the centimorgans are. So, I mean, there's formulas that you can use and other sites that you can use to translate the percentage into the centimorgans. Now that I didn't take her name out, you know that she's Shannon. She is my first cousin once removed that I mentioned a couple of times. This is a way on 23andMe where you can show shared common relatives. For instance, it shows me and Shannon, and it also shows on the other side the people that we share DNA with together. As you can see, that JN is also my first cousin once removed, but until recently, Shannon believed this man to be her full brother until she did the 23andMe test and found out they only share 25% of their DNA, which makes him a half brother. So they share a mother because Shannon's on my maternal side, and I share the same distance and relationship between her and her half brother. So that tells me that we are sharing maternal side because I know Shannon's on my maternal side. So we know that her half brother is her maternal half brother and not a paternal half brother. And as you go down, you can see that some of the people, one of the persons is my second cousin, but to Shannon is a distant cousin. They don't share much DNA at all, as you can see. But as you go down, you can also see I have a third cousin that's also a distant cousin to Shannon. This is good to see how people are related to each other. And as you get further into it and you learn more about your DNA, you can use this tool to figure out how people are related to each other. Let me get rid of this screen again. Okay. DNA Painter. DNA Painter is a website for genealogists and family history enthusiasts who have taken an autosomal DNA test. DNA Painter shared centimorgan tool figures out how you're related to a match. What are the odds tool? Identify an unknown parent or ancestor. You can visualize your tree in a fan chart and understand DNA inheritance paths, how you get your DNA from certain people. You can build a tree or you can import one. You can track the DNA you share with matches and map segments to ancestors. DNA Painter is free for you to use. You just have to sign up with an email address and a password to get in. They don't charge for this service, for this program. This example of DNA and DNA Painter shows how I use the percentage of shared DNA of my half-sister. It calculates the percentage into centimorgans. So I put in the percentage and it shows me how much centimorgans that we share. Now this is for my sister Linda, and you can see the number is off a little bit from what I showed earlier. It's just based on how different algorithms and the different programs work. They're always going to be, could be a little higher or a little lower, but they're always within that range on that chart I showed. It also shows the only possible relationships that those numbers could be: grandparent, aunt, uncle, half-sibling, niece, nephew, or a grandchild. Knowing that my half-sister is only 11 years older than me, I can discount the ones that are not possible. She can't be my grandmother, and I can't be her grandchild. That doesn't make sense based on age. Based on my other research, it was decided that she is not my aunt or my niece, though it's possible, rare but possible, leaving only half-sibling. This chart is just like the other one that I showed you, the highs and lows, only this highlights the areas of the possible relationships and the average centimorgans that we could be. You could see it did show up a small amount of possibility of sibling because of where the centimorgans lie in the high and low. But being a sibling, the average is 2,600 or so, I knew that that wasn't possible. Okay, so what is a Gedcom file? I'll go over this more also in a little bit, but I just wanted to let you know I did move the slides around a little bit to give you a little more understanding on it. Gedcom is an acronym standing for Genealogical Data Communication. It is a file specification for exchanging genealogical data between different genealogy software that was developed by the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, the LDS Church, as an aid to genealogical research. They are one of the biggest holders of genetic and DNA and research material in the field of genealogy. They happen to like the subject, and they made it part of their mission in life to help people with their genealogy. A Gedcom file can contain information on events such as births, deaths, census records, ships records, marriages. A rule of thumb is that an event is something that took place at a specific time, at a specific place, even if the time and place are not known. Gedcom files can also contain attributes such as physical description, occupation, and total number of children. Unlike events, attributes generally cannot be associated with a specific time or place. This is another tool in DNA Painter. This is called the What Are the Odds version 2, which allows a Gedcom file I just mentioned to be uploaded. Once you do your AncestryDNA, or you build a tree on Ancestry and you build a tree on 23andMe, you can download the file as a Gedcom file, and you can upload it to DNA Painter so that you can build a tree there. The good thing is you can use this tool to get a hypothesis about unknown family members, and I use this quite a bit when I have an unknown person within a family and I want to find out how they are related to somebody. So this is part of my family, and I'm just showing you how it transposes the Gedcom file into a tree, where it grabs the actual birth and death dates, the person's name, and you have to input yourself the centimorgans that you share with the actual person so that you can use the tool. This is a little bit of a clearer version. This shows more of my tree and how I input centimorgans from my known DNA matches. This is my maternal side of the family. So it shows that I'm here, and my daughter is here, and my son is here. And it shows the amount of centimorgans that I placed in based on my research from the other parts of my research from 23andMe and Ancestry that I tested with. So as you can see, I have quite a few people, and it shows that I put the centimorgans in. And I will show you why I do that. This is a client's tree that I imported from Ancestry, and I'm looking for an unknown parent. Now, it will produce what's called hypotheses, and it'll give you a score of from 0 to as high as you could possibly think, based on the information you're putting in. Now, I put in people, and I put in their centimorgans, and it shows that this hypothesis here, number 15, is my highest number. So this shows me that her grandfather had an unknown child that's a half sibling to Bernardo, and this person had a child, and this is most likely a biological father. Now, I haven't figured that out yet completely, but that's why I'm doing all this, because it's a lot of fun sometimes, and it gets a little crazy. But this is how I use that DNA Painter, what are the odds tool mostly, to find out the differences and the possibility of who a person is within a family. This is a very bright one. I'm sure everybody went, oh, that's so bright. But this is also from DNA Painter. This is called a chromosome browser tool. And this graph is a chromosome browser tool that it shows you the overlap of several segments of my DNA matches. So this is several people. And the red sections, as you can see, are a lot of them are my daughter. So it actually shows where people overlap to me and to my daughter and to the other people that I have in there. So this is several people from my family, including some of my paternal side and some of my maternal side. Y DNA tests. Get rid of this again. Because Y chromosomes are only passed from father to son, virtually unchanged, males can trace their patrilineal male line ancestry by testing their Y chromosome. Since women don't have Y chromosomes at all, they can't take Y DNA tests. They won't get a result, though their brother, father, paternal uncle, and paternal grandfather can. This is a paternal cousins match and I branch from the same Y DNA haplogroup, showing that there is a line of men leading back to an ancient common ancestor. The maternal haplogroup identifies unbroken lines of women that are all traced back to the same ancient common ancestor. As you can see, me and Stephen do not share the same haplogroup. Because your haplogroups do not match, you are most likely not recently related through a direct line of female ancestors. This is what tells me that this is a paternal match and not a maternal match. Paternal haplogroups identify unbroken lines of men that all trace back to the same ancient common ancestor. Now, the numbers aren't exactly the same, but you can see the full report if you do 23andMe. And you can also see that we do share the RL. Your paternal haplogroup, RL51, traces back to a man who lived less than 10,000 years ago. Now, that doesn't seem like a long time. It seems like a long time, but in DNA land, it really isn't. But it's nearly 400 generations ago. What happened between now and then? As researchers and citizen scientists discover more about your haplogroup, new details may be added to the story of my paternal line. RL51 is relatively uncommon amongst 23andMe users. 1 in 7,400 share the same haplogroup. Now, where can you take a Y DNA test? Only a few companies have Y DNA tests available. Family Tree DNA is a good starting place for testing, and they offer the largest database of matches. That's the thing about DNA, is you want to find as many matches as you possibly can, so you can put them in your tree and build the family tree. For people who are adopted like myself, we use it to find out who our biological family are. I gave you the prices there. $119 examines 37 of the segments on the Y chromosome. The $249 test, 111 short tandem repeats, which are the little snaps of the strands. And the big Y700 examines 700 and over 200,000 segments on the Y chromosome. So obviously, if you pay more, you're going to get more matches. You're going to get a bigger sample, and you're going to get more of your chromosomes tested. mtDNA tests, or the mitochondrial DNA test, trace people's maternal lines, the mother's line, ancestry through their mitochondria, which are passed from mothers to their children. Since everyone has mitochondria, both males and females can take the mitochondrial mtDNA tests. Mitochondrial DNA testing with family tree DNA is $159, but they do have sales occasionally. mtDNA benefits and challenges. Mitochondrial DNA testing offers several important benefits to genealogy researchers. There is very little recombination or changing of the DNA as it's passed down through the generations. This allows a researcher to use mtDNA results to trace a maternal line from mother to grandmother to great-grandmother and so on. When reviewing mtDNA cousin matches, a significant mismatch can be ruled out as a relationship on that line. Adoptees may benefit from completing an mtDNA test as the result can point them towards their biological mother's family. Mitochondrial DNA also provides clues to ethnic and geographical origins by virtue of its unchanging nature over hundreds of years. So you can find out where people came from because the DNA didn't change, so they can trace the DNA through the centuries through the lands that they migrated from. For example, mtDNA may reveal that a maternal line has Native American, European, or African roots. There are existing mtDNA haplogroups similar to Y-DNA haplogroups that can help trace ancestral origins to a particular branch of the mitochondrial genetic family tree. However, keep in mind that unchanging nature of DNA also presents a challenge when attempting to locate a shared ancestor within a particular genealogical time frame, as all the descendants on a maternal line will share the same nearly identical mtDNA. A cousin match can indicate evidence of a shared maternal ancestor, but it cannot identify which woman in that shared ancestral line is the common ancestor. An mtDNA test can reveal that two people are maternally related, but cannot discern their relationship of those with matching mtDNA may be mother, daughter, sisters, aunts, uncles, niece, or a very distant cousin. I'm going to cut through a little bit, but remember, in cultures where women change their names at marriage and where are more difficult to locate in records, having a detailed family tree for those female ancestors is essential. Without traditional genealogical evidence to provide additional clues, mtDNA results can be difficult to incorporate in your research. I skipped through a little bit because I basically use autosomal DNA. mtDNA is very useful, like I said, in certain aspects, but it's hard to trace exactly who the people are and how they're related to you. The best thing always to do is an autosomal test, and that'll help you build a family tree that's correct. From there, you can find out who your female relatives are. This maternal cousin and I share the same exact haplogroup passed down through our maternal line. Our most recent common ancestor, Micra, is my grandmother. So as you can see, it's not very far in the past. That is why we share the exact same maternal haplogroup. The other gentleman I shared the paternal haplogroup with, there was some migration. So there was a little bit of difference in the RL51 to his number. But it is possible that we are related through a direct line of female ancestors, but it is also possible that you match because you share much older roots in the same part of the world, which is also true, but I do know that she is my first cousin. Migrations of your maternal line, haplogroup L that I share. If every person living today could trace his or her maternal line back over thousands of generations, all of our lines would meet at a single woman, and she's known as mitochondrial Eve, who lived in Eastern Africa between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. Though she was one of perhaps thousands of women alive at the time, only the diverse branches of her haplogroup have survived today. Your story of your maternal line begins with her. My maternal haplogroup, TB1, traces back to a woman who lived approximately 6,000 years ago. TB1 is relatively uncommon among 23andMe users. 1 in 1,500 share that haplogroup that I share with my cousin. When you do a DNA test with Ancestry 23andMe, your DNA results can be transferred to other sites in order to find more possible matches of your family. AncestryDNA and 23andMe do not allow you to upload data from other DNA sites to them. GEDmatch is an open public database that accepts DNA from Ancestry, 23andMe, MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, mtDNA, and Living DNA. The results of the transfer will show a database of DNA matches across all of the DNA companies. Since GEDmatch is an open and public forum, the private data is not completely secure and can be viewed by anyone wishing to check that database. You can decide the level of privacy you wish to achieve on GEDmatch. GEDmatch was used to find family information that ultimately led to the arrest of the Golden State Killer, who was sought after almost 40 years. This is a small portion of my GEDmatch matches. As you can see, Ancestry kits are labeled A, 23andMe kits are started with the letter M, Family Tree DNA kits start with the letter T, and MyHeritage kits start with the letter H. As you can see, anybody can take their DNA, upload it, and download it from their individual testing site and move it over to GEDmatch, which gives you a larger population of matches that you can use in your research. Using DNA test ethnicity results. Ethnicity results from DNA testing sites vary because of different testing methods. They use different algorithms. My two DNA tests, Ancestry and 23andMe, vary only a little. But I have seen wide changes between clients of testing sites. Can you give me some water, honey? Sure. Ethnicity can show you where your ancestors came from and approximately when they might have left their homeland or migrated to other parts of the world. Tracing migration will assist you in finding family units that share similar migration. A lot of people moved from one area to another, but most of them came here to the United States. Tracking movements of families show a timeline of family history. Excuse me. This is the breakdown of my ethnicity estimates, and they are only estimates. They can only give you so much information based on your DNA. You have to do your own research to find out where your family truly came from. But from what I found in my research, a lot of this is very accurate. It shows where my family came from, and making me European Jewish, Jews from Western and Central Europe, Lithuania, Latvia, Ukraine, Western Europe, Western Russia. I have some English in me and some Germanic Europe, which also includes France and some Eastern Europe and Russia. As you can see on the world chart, it shows where the largest section of my family came from, which is a very big swath of land in the middle of Eastern Europe and Russia. This is the 23andMe ethnicity breakdown. I know the map's a lot smaller, a little harder to see based on my screen, but you can see that the areas that they're showing from map to map are very close to each other. And they do have the normal, very close breakdown to each other based on how many people, my family, and where they came from. This one shows that I'm 50.4% Ashkenazi Jew, which is a European Jew. And it does show about 35% of Northwestern Europe, France, and Germany. This breaks it down a little tighter than Ancestry does, just based on how their algorithm is used. And it does show that I do have a tiny bit of Spanish and Portuguese. I haven't found anybody in my family tree. I haven't gone back that far enough to find anybody who was actually from there. but most of them come from Eastern Europe and from France and Germany. This is on Ancestry again, and this shows a large section of area, and it actually shows a timeline, which is a great overview and timeline of when people are actually from this area. The thing I like about Ancestry is it tells you a little bit of a story. They actually do have a story book that you can create through Ancestry that gives you a breakdown of how your family was built. You and all the members of this community are linked through shared ancestors. You probably have family who have lived in this area for years and maybe still do. Some of my DNA matches still do come from this area. Some of my possible ancestors were found through Story Scout, which is another tool on Ancestry, and they might be ancestors who connect you to this community. I blacked out the names and the pictures of my DNA relatives. I'm sorry, it's for privacy. But these are some of my matches who belong in this group. One is a second cousin, a third cousin, and a fourth cousin that they show me. And it gives you a little story about the Jewish Enlightenment court hold in the late 1800s, 18th century. Many Ashkenazi Jews assimilated into German culture while maintaining their Jewish identity. And then you can follow the path from Germany, from Eastern Europe into Germany and Belgium and into the United States. This one goes a little closer into time, and it shows my first great-grandmother and my first great-grandfather and their migratory routes from that area, and it gives you a little bit of a story called A New Wave about Eastern Europe, urban manufacturing centers within the Russian Pale of Settlement, areas where Jews could legally live, grew rapidly. However, a wave of violent attacks on Jews, pogroms, and new laws further restricted Jews' trade and settlement, making them want to leave, and they ended up coming to the United States. Now in 1875, it shows the timeline moving on, and this shows more of my family, including my maternal grandfather, coming also to the United States from that area. They were in Eastern Europe. They did move into areas of Germany and France and ended up coming here in the late 1800s. DNA is a useful tool to explore your family's history, to understand where they came from, and how to understand how your DNA matches are related to you and to other matches. Using DNA to help build your family trees is a great way of putting it all together. Meeting family. On the right is my sister Linda. I had the pleasure of finally meeting her after talking on the phone and sending text messages and emails for months and months. We drove down from Jersey to Washington, D.C., and she took a plane from Tennessee into D.C., and we spent 4 wonderful days getting to know each other and enjoying each other's company in the pool at the hotel we were staying at. We also toured a lot of Washington, D.C., including the Vietnam Memorial, the Korean War Memorial, the World War II Memorial, and had a great lunch. And the other side is my cousin Norman. He's my half cousin, first cousin once removed. And I got to meet him when we went down to a trip to Disney World. He was in Titusville, which isn't too far. So my wife and I took a side trip on our own and met up with Norm and his wife, Jean, who is the family genealogist. She had 8 3-inch 3-ring binders filled with information, which I would have happily taken every bit of, but I couldn't carry it all. So I settled for taking pictures of some of the most important stuff. So that's my presentation. This is my business card. Take down my information if you wish to get in touch with me. I do take on individual clients to do genealogy for them, including checking family trees, verifying family trees you might already have, getting you an AncestryDNA test, getting the test to you, analyzing the results of your AncestryDNA test, and building family trees from it and from other information you have. You can call me You can write me, you can email me, you can see me on my webpage, you can tweet me. I don't really use Twitter all that much. I don't get a lot on Twitter, but it's another way to get in touch with me. And you can also get in touch with me on Facebook at It's All Relative Genealogy Research, or you can look me up by my name. It's available on there. I'll leave this up another moment or two for you guys to get it. Take down the information, take a picture of it. A lot of people tell me, oh, wait, leave that screen up. I want to take a picture of it because it's so much easier to go back. Take a picture, it lasts longer, as they say, right? I'm going to be redoing my business card soon. I can't wait. It's exciting. It's exciting. So I will stop sharing. I'll let you. Everybody says, oh, well, you can see my face again. But then somebody told me that you could see my face throughout the whole presentation on the side, unless you decide to get rid of it. So sometimes I might make funny faces or whatever while I'm speaking. So I really don't care. I don't even know. Just, But I hope you guys enjoyed.
That was
my wife.
Eric. Thank you so much.
My wife.
Information.
My wife. I hope it's not too much information, but my wife always makes sure that she gets in my coffee in my It's All Relative It's All Relative cup.
Nice.
That she bought for me a couple of years ago, and she's like, "Oh, while you're doing the presentation, you're drinking your coffee. You have to show them your mug."
That's funny. Well, we do have a few questions in the chat if you're ready.
Awesome. Oh, absolutely. I'm ready.
I'm going to start with, hold on, let me see.
And if I can't answer them, I will find the answer.
Okay. So I'm going to start with some easier ones. Sally asks, how does 23andMe measure confidence? That may not be an easy one, but it's a simple question.
I understand the question because Ancestry shows a level of confidence based on the centimorgans that you share with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And 23andMe is very similar. They might not show the exact confidence. I'd have to look back because I really don't go by that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do go by it somewhat, but confidence of your DNA matches are going to be based on how much DNA you share with them. The higher amount of centimorgans and DNA you share with them, the higher confidence they're going to have that it's correct match. Like I said earlier, when you get lower in the numbers, the confidence of how close you are related to somebody is going to drop based on how much centimorgans you share with them, which is the amount of DNA you share with them. So in order for, like my daughter and I share 3,460 something centimorgans, they're going to show that it's of extremely high confidence. I hope that answers the question.
I hope so. Sally, if it doesn't, please chime in. But it's a good transition to the next question, another question. So you talked about how many centimorgans match. Does the across X segments tell you something as well? In other words, if you match across more segments, is that a closer relation?
Yes and no. You can share a large segment with somebody. You can share 62 centimorgans and only be on one segment. You can share a low number of centimorgans in one section on one chromosome. So you might be able to see that you and this person share on chromosome 3 62 separate segments, but it only makes up 62 centimorgans, which is going to give you a lower number.
Yeah.
But not necessarily that the more segments you have, the higher you're going to share.
Okay.
Basically, you want to go by total centimorgans or percentage.
Okay.
That'll be your best bet.
And then the same person is asking, do all of the services show the chromosome matches like you're showing us? I think this was an early slide where you had all the chromosomes.
Okay. 23andMe do show the chromosome lines, but their Ancestry does not show you, they do not have a chromosome browser tool, though I've heard people yelling and screaming and calling Ancestry all the time to install a chromosome browser. Okay. But there are so many of them out there that you can use. You can use them on DNA Painter has a chromosome browser, and 23andMe has some tools that you can use where you can match up different people on different chromosomes. I use it sometimes because if I don't know where a person is related to me through the chromosomes, I can match them up with somebody else who's on that same line that I do know. For instance, if I have a cousin that's matching me on a nice portion of chromosome 3, and I find another person that I don't know who they are, but they're also matching me within that area on chromosome 3, I can assume or believe that this person is related within this family unit, or somewhere direct from this line.
Okay, we have a couple specific instance questions, but Robert is asking, please talk about the use of triangulation.
Okay, triangulation is like where I showed you, where I have more than one person. I'm looking at shared matches. Now I'm looking at shared matches between me and my sister. And my sister has, we have 25 people in that list that show that we share DNA between the two of us. I can take the 3 people and I would triangulate how they join together within a family unit. It's a little hard to explain. It's a little easier sometimes on paper. When I build a family tree, I can see where one line leads into another, and the 3 points, the triangulation of where they meet up is where I'm looking. Where I have one cousin on one side and have another cousin on another side of the tree, all on my maternal line, their event between myself and them 2 cousins, it's going to point me to a most common recent ancestor. And that's how I use triangulation. I mean, you can look it up online. There are a lot of explanations online on how people use it. I'm not always the best at it, but I'm not the best genealogist in the world either. I'm sure there are plenty of people with more experience and more knowledge than I have, but I try to share what I know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so this is a question about family tree DNA. I don't know how to use it properly. It seems that everyone is in the J1B1A1A haplogroup, but I learned nothing more about them. Few fill in their ancestral surnames. How can I match up with them?
Okay, I haven't used mtDNA too much. I didn't even do my ancestry with them, but I am learning as I go along. There are charts online that will chart that specific haplogroup. Those haplogroup numbers come from far way back in time. Sometimes it's difficult to understand haplogroups. If she did her mtDNA, if she did the autosomal test, I generally go by I go by the centimorgans, and I go by the family trees more than I go by the haplogroups, because a lot of them are estimated, and it only shows migration patterns. It doesn't really show exactly how you're related to the person.
Okay, I hope that helps the person who asked the question. So someone asks, I just received my MyHeritage auto clusters analysis. Is this a useful tool to decide who should be contacted to look for connections?
Yes, I mean, any tool that you find on any of the sites. I mean, the thing with the sites are they're so varied on their tools and how they use their algorithms and how they use their information to give you more information. The autosomal clusters are just showing you people who lie within the same chromosome lines as you might. The best way to decide whether you're going to contact somebody is if you're looking for them within a family tree. If you have them in your DNA and you know their DNA related to you, and you're not sure how they're related to you when you're building the family tree, the best thing to do is contact them and find out who their parents are and who their grandparents are. And if they know, their great-grandparents. From there, you build the tree.
Okay.
Might not be answering the question that great, but I'm trying.
Yeah, and feel free to unmute if you're any of these questioners and clarify.
Or you can always email me and I'll look something up for you.
Yes. Let's see. One more sort of story question. Someone is looking for, this is a call-in user. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Go for it.
Oh, okay. Somebody did a 23andMe on my family, which is European. But if I have an ancestor from the 1600s and 1700s, because we have been here hundreds of years, and they might be Native American or African, would it show up? It probably does not show up in the regular 23andMe, right? I have to do something like the mitochondrial DNA in order for it to show up.
No, the 23andMe test does show ethnicity, and the main thing about going back that far is that there, like I said, ethnicities are estimates based on the science they're using, or the algorithms they're using to decide based on how many people have done their DNA test. The more people who do their DNA test, the closer they're going to get to what your DNA actually matches to other people from back then or different parts of the world. If you're looking back at the 16 and 1700s, the easiest way to do that is to find cousins that match up to family that go back that far. So my main thing is building family trees. If you use 23andMe, they actually populate a family tree for you using the DNA matches you have. Now, you said you did the 23andMe test, or somebody else did?
Well, another member of my family, sibling, did it.
Okay.
But nothing, it all looked European, but I had thought I heard that the 23andMe and the typical, the autosomal test only goes back about 5 generations. And
Right.
after that, it might not show up. That's what I've heard.
You know, when you go back 5 generations, you're talking about from you to your third great grandparents. So, I mean, there might not be a lot of DNA still hanging on from that far back. That's why I showed one of the slides where it showed that you can actually show 0 centimorgans shown between you and a match that goes back third cousins, fourth cousins, fifth cousins, and further. But the easiest way to find out, if you do Ancestry also, you can compare the two based on the ethnicity of where the family comes from. Now, if your family's here from the 1600s, you probably won't be able to go back past that. For the main reason is the Native Americans didn't sit there and, you know, write a lot of stories and say, oh, okay, we're from this tribe or that tribe. But once the Europeans came here in the 1620s and later, people are tracing their family back to Europe from them. If you're not finding any Native American in the DNA of the relative that you tested with, it's most likely that they are European and they came from England around that time in the 1600s.
Okay. Now they're talking about some people having Neanderthal genes. What test does that come out from?
It's all just based on science that you might have a little Neanderthal gene in you left. There are certain markers that they look for, but you know, who really cares if we're Neanderthal or not? Homo sapien, Neanderthal, we're all the same now. We're more bridged together by the DNA that we share most commonly, which is most common recent ancestors, people who are still around or that not are in the past. I wouldn't worry about being part Neanderthal.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Eric, I have one more so far in
Sure.
the chat. So this is a story. A friend is looking for her father, but nothing seems close. Only her mother's side shows up. How can she find her father if she doesn't get any close matches? And then she has a lot of data for you.
Okay, I mean, she can always send it along. If she's here, she can mention it to me.
Okay. I'll read it.
Okay.
Or maybe maybe we'll send it along. Okay, the
It's in the
highest,
chat.
Okay.
I'll put the data in the chat.
Courtney, that's not the same person.
Oh, sorry, Kay.
That's all right. It's two different questions. I have a friend who is looking for her father. She
Okay.
grew up with her mother, so she has that information. She has two half sisters already matched up, but she's looking for her father.
Did she do Ancestry or 23andMe?
My heritage.
Oh, My Heritage. Tell her to take, if she didn't do it yet, tell her to download her My Heritage DNA DNA, her
Yes.
DNA data, and then move it to any place that'll accept it, like GEDmatch, and I think FTDNA will take My Heritage, and a few others will take it. But GEDmatch is a good place. They're not the most, they're not the most private in the world, but it might give them a few more matches to look at. Ancestry is also a better one to take when someone is looking for an unknown parentage, because of the amount of people that are taking the DNA test themselves. So you're going to end up with a lot more matches. I have about 100,000 matches on my DNA, mainly because I'm European Jewish, and it just happens to turn out that way because there are a lot of us. But the best thing to do is probably, if she's looking for an unknown father, is probably try AncestryDNA and uploading her My Heritage to GEDmatch to get more people. I'm sure there are some of her father's side that tested. It's very unlikely that not any of them ever tested. There is going to be somebody on her father's side. But if she does the ancestry test, she can then separate out her maternal side from what she knows, and shared matches. People that share DNA with you on your mom's side are not going to share on the dad's side. I mean, sometimes a little bit, but then she can see who the relatives are on her dad's side. And then she can start contacting them or build the family tree based on other people's trees. The only thing with using other people's trees is they're not always correct. So always look for documents to prove what other people have.
So
I hope that answered.
Can I ask one more quick question?
Sure.
What's the number of the centimorgans do you look at? Because the largest one I have is 67.3, and it seems to me that's too small a number to bother following through on.
Go with your highest. 67.3 is probably about a third cousin or so.
Exactly.
Which means you would share 2 times great grandparents.
Right.
The hardest thing is building a family tree back far enough to find out who the common ancestor is between you and them. But and what test was that? That was My Heritage?
Yes, My Heritage.
Ancestry's
I
on.
also have it on Ancestry.
Oh, you have it on Ancestry?
Yeah.
And what's your highest match on Ancestry?
Well, right now I'm in between being on Ancestry, so.
Oh, okay. If you do the AncestryDNA test, if you haven't done it, they're on sale now. I think they're $49 plus shipping, which is half price. They're selling a lot of them, I'm sure, for Christmas because they're selling the price. But you will get a lot more matches from them than you would from My Heritage.
No, I agree with that, absolutely. But I keep thinking this is too small a match for me to, and My Heritage will match it up for me anyway. They do a tentative match of possibilities,
Right.
And which Ancestry doesn't do. But I thought, why don't I have anybody closer? And I don't have anybody in my close family to test anymore. I'm the last one, so.
Okay. You don't have any siblings?
No, not alive.
Okay.
Children are gone.
Do they have children? Did they have children? Any of your
I
siblings?
have
Any?
asked their children and they haven't done it.
Mm,
I gave them the test, but they haven't done it.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, the only way to get more populations of matches within your family is people to test. Unfortunately, there's no magic to it. It's more or less like um, a third cousin spits for ancestry, and they show up on your match list, and then from there you can find out who their family is, and then build a tree. So the easiest thing to do is build a tree. And like I said, I'm available to help people a little bit free, a little pro bono I do. Simple things I'll help out with. Um, I could take a look at it, just send me an email. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes one side does not test as much as another side might test. Sometimes a whole family group will not test at all. I mean, I have more maternal than I have paternal. I'm actually missing one whole grandfather because not only was I adopted, but my biological father was adopted.
Oh.
So I only found out that because I found two obituaries. I found an obituary naming him as a son for one family unit, and then I found another obituary naming him as a son of a completely different family, completely unrelated. And then I contacted somebody from the adopted side, which I found out was the adopted side. They go, "Oh, my father told me not to meddle too much, not to get involved, but I'll tell you one thing that might help you in your search, that that your biological father, this person, was adopted at age 4 through Catholic Charities." And I go, two obituaries. So from there, I started looking into one side more than the other, and I realized that one side is the biological family based on the DNA matches that I had. The one of them that I had on the screen named Stephen, I showed, he's the first cousin once removed, and he's on my father's mother's side, but I can't find much on my father's side. And one of my half brothers is hesitantly going to do a test for me. I think he's worrying about inheritance. He doesn't want to piss off the biological father, who doesn't want to believe that I am his actual son. So he was married during the time I was conceived, so, and not to the person I was biologically born to. So I mean, it's a great story. I mean, I'll eventually write a book on it, but it's I don't know how many people are going to be interested in all that, but maybe one day. I hope that answered. I mean, I hope I answered everybody's questions as best I can right now. And if anybody didn't think my answer was great enough, or they want more information, I will gladly send me an email. I'll gladly look up whatever I can for you.
I have one question.
Sure.
If I'm totally beginning and I want to get one for Christmas, which one should I ask for?
Ancestry.
Okay, that's the sense I got.
Yeah, it's $49 right now. I think they have it on till like right after Christmas, $49. I'd get it as soon as you can. They do take a little while to get it back to you, but once you send it back to them and they get it, it's usually 6 to 8 weeks you get your DNA results.
Okay.
In that time, you can sign up for a free account and you could start building a family tree. If you have a free account, the research and searching records are a little more difficult, but you have the free one on Ancestry on the library. I don't know how far you get on that too, but it's sometimes easier to get a subscription for a small amount of time if you want to start.
Yeah.
And then if you don't want to keep paying for it, you just cancel it and go back when you're ready. I know a lot of people do that as well. David, you look thrilled over there. Hi, David. How are you? You look like you were taking notes and everything. It was very nice to see.
I was taking notes. I've done the DNA test, but I wasn't expecting to find anything. My family goes straight back to England and Scotland and Northern Ireland. I guess the only thing I found out was which I don't think is surprising, 5% Sweden. You know, those Scandinavians did raid England, you know, back
Right.
in the day.
That's
So
right.
it all made sense. So,
Right.
yeah.
Oh, I mean, I thought I was 100% Jewish. I thought I was Ashkenazi Jew right across the line, and it came up only half. And then from there, I realized, well, it's not my mother's side I'm getting the other half from. It's definitely my dad's side. So then I started looking through my DNA matches, and I found DNA matches on my father's side that I can't place yet anything with the surname Gallet and Semet, which are completely French, and they actually from Belgium. And I actually met one of the cousins. She's actually a third cousin, which I'm not sure she's an actual third cousin, but she's somewhere around that range, about 35, 40 centimorgans. And I met her down in Florida too on one of my trips. And I was hoping to meet her brother, who was a little older than her, but he had an eye appointment, so he went to that instead. But and look, sometimes DNA matches that you reach out to are going to be extremely friendly. Some will be extremely friendly for 5 minutes, and then you try to ask them more information, and everybody is so busy with their lives that right now, especially worrying about COVID, worrying about work, working from home, schooling from home, going to the grocery store, wearing a mask, you know, so everybody's very uptight. We're very uptight in the household here. We have a lot of COVID scares, so I mean, it's just really crazy. But this virtual thing is working out pretty well for a lot of people, I think. My wife is teaching from home. My stepson is learning from home. My son is learning from home in Buffalo. My daughter is an early intervention counselor for a company, and she's working from home. So might as well get knowledge from it and learn something about your DNA and all that. I mean, I learned a lot online through online classes, and you know, just doing it.
That's great.
Yeah, I didn't realize Wayland Library had an account because, like you just said, Eric, I've paid for the service from time to time.
Right.
And then I paid for international because obviously, you know, before the 1700s, everything's back in Great Britain.
Pretty much, yeah.
But I only do it for a short period of time when I know that I'm interested and have time, so I might do it for 2 months.
Right.
And like you said, I've written my second cousin in Scotland and asked him to fill in some of the blanks on my Scottish side, and that request and a copy of the tree that I sent him with all the unknown dates he's had for a year. And he's mentioned it twice, but he's never gotten it back to me. And I can't beat him up over it. If he's not interested, it is what it is.
There are a lot of people who take this test and they get it as a gift, and they have no idea they're going to find something, and they don't really care. They barely build a tree. I have a client. She was adopted out of El Salvador in 1980 during the Civil War, and it's like pulling teeth from her relatives. Whether she contacts them or people are impressed, and they go, "Oh, she hired a professional genealogist. She must be really anxious to find this information." And they'll give you a bit here and there, and then you don't hear from them anymore. I had one guy, I contacted a guy in El Salvador that is like a second cousin to her or part of the family, and he goes, "I'll give you information. Send me $50." Right? I mean, believe me, people think, I mean, when I write letters to clients, people, or my own family that I'm doing research for, I have to put a statement in saying, I'm not looking for anything but genealogical information, family history, names, dates, birth dates. I don't want your money. I don't want your property. I don't want your firstborn. I just want a little bit of information, and then it'll help me build. I mean, look, I've got a lot of great information from people. I help from places online for free. And I found also people who help you online for free will help you for a short amount of time. And then even if you don't finish that section that you're looking for, they drop off the face, they go on to something else. So that's why I think professional genealogists are good, except so much, they charge so darn much. When I first started looking, my wife and I, Dr. Phil had on there, what was the name of the place, honey? Dr. Phil's genealogy researchers. The one I was going to hire for like $1,000.
The locator.
Oh, the locator. Now they wanted $1,000, fine or not. Just to start, just to start.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm a lot. If you go online, a lot of the places charge anywhere between $100 or more an hour, and I am nowhere near that. And believe me, there are plenty of times I'll sit there on Ancestry working on my own thing, and then flip over to one of my clients' trees, and just start putting in information and not even time them. Which I mean, I should, but you know, I just get so carried away. I'm like, oh, I found something. Oh, let me put this in. Oh, wait, I'm not on Clockify. So I mean, it's their benefit. I let them know. I have one lady right now. She calls me every couple of days. Oh, I saw this on Ancestry. I saw that on Ancestry. I go, we need for your DNA test to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Your family is, you're African American, your family is from the South in the 1860s. You're not going to find much more before the 1860s on your family, unfortunately. You might get lucky, but slave times, the white man did not care that the black man knew who his daddy was.
Mm.
You know what I mean? They didn't write it down and say, you know, this slave's daddy was so-and-so and his granddaddy was so-and-so. They didn't care.
Yeah.
So I told her, let's get your ancestry DNA back. She's got a couple of days left until it comes in. And I go, from there, we will be able to do a lot more, because once your cousins come in and I contact your cousins and say, hey, look, you know, so-and-so is looking for her family to build a little more on her tree. She already said to me, she goes, oh, now I see why my family is the way they are, because they were in the South during Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
And they were totally segregated. And she goes, oh, I saw a yearbook photo of one of my family members, and I looked it up and the whole class was white. And I go, that's not your family. Your daddy was black, your mommy was black, your grandparents were black. This is not your family. You know, I mean,
The DNA will tell the tale.
it will. It'll tell me exactly. It'll exactly tell me her ethnicity. It'll tell me who her cousins are, and then I can build more on the tree.
Great.
I don't want to keep anybody much longer. I'm sure everybody had a long Monday.
Are there any more questions in the chat? Does anyone else have any more questions?
Elise,
I'm gonna
Rosemary,
send around Eric's information after
Awesome.
this in your email, so you'll have that.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
All right, then
Thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you, Eric. This was great.
All right. So, I mean, I have other programs that I have available. I have the basic. I have the one on family research.
Yep.
That just shows how to do family research and places to find it.
Okay.
And I also I'm working on one for just about ethnicity, which is a little tougher because, like I said, it's an estimate.
Huh. Cool. All right. We'll chat.
All right.
All
Keep
right,
in touch.
everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you. Bye, David. Bye, Elise. Bye, Pam, DR, Elise, and Rosemary, whoever's left. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye.